Hello, Jona. Thank you so much for being part of Read the Beats. For your picks for Read the Beats, I have decided to go with three kind of tiers, if you like. Kind of from most intense to like poppy but still a banger, and then like less intense, and we'll give you quite a challenge. Let's start
Now I'm scared.
with the first one. And it's the most intense, the most epic. I heard this only, a month ago, and I really, really enjoyed it and added it to my list straight away as soon as I found it. And that is called Valhalla Calling.
Yes! I love that fucking song, man! Ooh, But I see the cover, it's the one with Peyton Parrish. I do not support Peyton Parrish because that man right now has giant beef with the guy who made the song, Miracle of Sound, so I will not take the Peyton Parrish version into account. I will take the original version by Miracle of Sound into account, just as a little disclaimer. But yes, Valhalla Calling is an amazing song. I think it is hilarious that this song exploded this much, simply because it has exploded into a direction where a lot of people think this is an original Viking shanty of sorts. No! Miracle of Sound wrote this song for the game Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Just saying!
By Miracle of Sound featuring Peyton Parrish.
Again, the original does not feature Peyton Parrish, and I will not take the Peyton Parrish version into account. I will take the original version into account.
This is just an epic masterpiece. The depth of their voices and the synchronicity between the two of them, and you hear those drums and...
I get what you're talking about, but again, not supporting assholes on this channel.
Well, I lose it.
Not just you.
That is your first pick, and there is a very, very obvious road that you can go down as far as picking a book based on that song.
I mean, yeah, sure. For the uninitiated, Assassin's Creed does publish books to their games. I have the book for Assassin's Creed 2 where we follow Ezio. He has, I think, 3 books. I also have the Black Flag book. Technically, I could just read the Valhalla book. I will not do that. I don't have the Assassin's Creed Valhalla book, but that would have been the most obvious choice. Although I don't think that is what Jess meant. But yeah, I was a huge Assassin's Creed fan before they turned open world with Origins. Like, I played Origins and I was Then I never touched Odyssey and Valhalla, and now I heard that with Mirage they return to the original concept of what an Assassin's Creed game is, so I don't know, but now I don't have the console to play it anymore. Sad times. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's a Viking thing, right? So I guess I could go with like Shadow of the Gods by Gwynne. That's a Viking thing. It's like the one thing that pokes out at me. Shadow of the Gods is, I believe, Norse-inspired stuff, so that would fit perfectly with the Vikings and shit. I'm singing the song in my head right now to find inspiration from the lyrics. Yeah, it's probably going to be Shadow of the Gods for this one. Moving on.
It's kind of in the title.
Yeah.
But listen to it. I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna like that song. Your second...
well, spoiler alert, I do like the song, I just like the original more, because reasons. If you are interested, there's also an a cappella version where he and 2 other people are singing it in like the deepest range possible, like just hearing it makes your bones vibrate. Can only recommend that version as well.
Yeah, I really love listening to this song when I just need encouragement to get moving. And that is Shady by Adam Lambert. The reason I like this song is because...
Listen, I like me a good Adam Lambert song, and you have actually found one that I didn't know. That's one of his earlier ones, right? I have to listen to that one.
It's a song that's quite empowering, and a song that's saying like he's being shady to other people, but in that kind of way it's empowering him.
I mean, sometimes you have to be a bit shady to empower yourself, right? Let's look it up. Okay, don't mind me adding that to my random playlist until I can sort it out further into my other playlist, but that's a good song. I like that. It is indeed very peppy. It's given the vibe of let's move. I get that. I truly get that, yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't know what to read for it because it's giving a very bitchy main character, but like in a funny way. I have to think about that one. probably end up being Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver if book one is anything like, if the characters are anything like they were in the first one, Butcher and Blackbird, because the banter in this is really, really good, and the song is giving great banter with like an I don't give a shit attitude. So maybe I'm reading Leather and Lark for that one. We'll see.
For your third prompt, I am going to give you a song that I feel like everybody knows, but not everybody will know the instrumental to the song, and that is In the End. And your prompt will be the piano version of the song. And
you're digging deep with Linkin Park for me. Oh boy, okay. So In the End is one of my favorite songs, period. It's one of my favorite albums they ever put out. And you want me to listen to the piano version? Is this... Oh my god, this is going to be a gut punch, isn't it? I mean, In the End is already a gut punch, but a piano version usually makes everything so sad and dramatic.
I'm telling you, while there are certain parts of the song where you can tell that it is In the End by Linkin Park, it is a completely different vibe and a completely different feel.
Yeah, like, I mean, Linkin Park, they, especially for that album, they are known to have this sharp-edged industrial grinding noise to them. A piano doesn't have that. I'm not going to look this up on Spotify. I'm specifically going to use the version that Jess gave me, because if it's like a piano cover can be a very personalized thing, so I'm going with specifically with the version I have been provided for this video to listen to. Oh boy, okay. Now I'm sad again. Like, I was deep in the trenches of my Linkin Park phase when the news about Chester broke, so that was a bigger gut punch than I thought it would be just now. But I don't know why, but specifically the beginning, the intro of the song, before you would expect the lyrics, you know, it starts with one. Before that, the intro of the song, I don't know why, but it gave me an epic fantasy vibe. It's not the point where the hero, it's not this famously all is lost moment. It's more of this rallying, this last bit of force to beat the big bad, if you know what I mean. I feel inclined to apologize for the way I describe things. My brain interprets music as a movie. Like, I legitimately see fully fledged scenes in my brain when I listen to music, so yeah, listening to such a piano piece with so much emotion behind it, I think of a very emotional scene, this last push to have this last, like, the second wind to defeat the big baddie. It's giving the final 100 pages of the third book in a trilogy, if you know what I mean. That is certainly what I have to think about.
A completely different feel when you're just listening to the piano and taking the lyrics out of it and taking all of the other instruments out of it.
I agree.
And so I think that could be quite a challenge. So the challenge there is to go off the vibes. I hope you enjoy these songs, and I hope you can find some great books out of them. And I look forward to seeing your vlog. Good luck. Okay, so that is what we have to work with. Interesting. I will have to think about that. I'm probably going to put all of them in a little playlist and have them run, or just put the songs on repeat until I find a book that gives me the right vibes. And once I figure out what I want to read, I'll get back to you. I didn't need to make too many adjustments to my first impressions of what I wanted to read for the songs that were given to me. It was pretty obvious by the end of it. So I will in fact read Shadow of the Gods by Gwynne for Valhalla Calling, because this is a Norse-inspired world. Valhalla is Norse mythology, so we go with Shadow of the Gods by Gwynne for Valhalla Calling. Then for Shady, I will stick with Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver, because the characters in the first book, Butcher and Blackbird, are just very snarky, shady towards other serial killers, but also each other. It's hilarious, and I just think it's going to happen in the second book
as well. And then for the incredibly sad Linkin Park piano cover, I am not going with the third book in a trilogy because I just need, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but I was listening to the song again. And I was looking at some books where I was like, this might fit the vibe, and there are no lyrics to this. And I distinctly tried to not think about the lyrics of the original song and just go with the vibes, and my brain said we are going to read Dowry of Blood, which is hilarious when you watch Jess's vlog about the songs that I gave her, because she too picked Dowry of Blood for very different reasons. I went with the emotional, sad side of things about this toxic relationship where you're like in love but then you're not in love and blah blah blah, like the whole emotional side of things, and she picked Dowry of Blood for the serial killer aspect. So, yeah, Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. In total, that leaves me with these 3 books to read, and they are very different in the vibes they are giving off, which is actually kind of funny. I think I will read at least once, like each of these books I will have one reading session where the song is going in the background. Maybe not necessarily on repeat, especially Shady, because that thing just makes me want to bounce around. And probably also not Valhalla Calling more than once, because Valhalla Calling is just so amazing. Every time I hear it, I just stop whatever I'm doing. I'm just going with it, you know? But yeah, I want to read a couple of pages with the song in the background to see if the vibes fit as much as I think they will. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting selection for me to read. So I started In the Shadow of Gods, In the Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, and I'm 100 pages into it, and I am reminded that John Gwynne's books are kind of slow and don't make much sense in the beginning. The first 100 pages, we are basically just introduced to our main characters and the circumstances they are living in. There's also a lot of world building being thrown around that feels kind of info-dumpy. Like it's characters explaining things about the world to other characters, but the characters that get shit explained to them should know that because they grew up in this world. Like, one character is explaining how to get to or through the afterlife kind of thing, and I'm like, dude, you're explaining this to your warrior comrade. She should know that. She's not doing this job for like 2 minutes. Like, she's been doing this for years. So some are like the dad explaining the monsters to the mom, and the mom like, yeah, I know that. Like, she actually acknowledges that she knows that, so why was the dad explaining it to her as if she's never heard of that? It's not my favorite kind of world building. Characters explaining things to other characters that should know things so the reader understands. It's just weird. And it's also very zoomed in. John Gwynne describes every single action these characters take. Like, going to the river, splashing water in your face, taking your water bottle out, filling the water bottle, putting the water bottle back, changing your outfits is explained in every single step. I get it. They're changing from their everyday clothes into their armor. You don't have to break it down piece by piece. I get it. So it's very slow going. It's a very slow 100 pages with not a lot going on. I mean, yeah, there are battle scenes, but they just feel like they've been thrown in for the sake of it. Although I have to say, the battle scenes and the monsters just existing, just hanging out, do a lot more for the world building than whatever the characters are telling each other. Because, like, they walked through a forest and they just stumbled upon a troll, and our character remembers for herself, oh shit, I just found this mountain of troll shit. But just from this mountain, I cannot say, is it a young one? Is it an old one? Is it a male, a female? Right now it's breeding season, so one never knows. That was good world building, because she was actually thinking about shit. Quite literally. I'm 100 pages in and nothing has happened yet. But I have like almost 400 pages to go. So I hope there's something that's going to happen at some point. Okay, so it's been a hot second. I've made it not quite halfway through, but I'm over 200 pages now into this. And stuff finally happened. Not a lot of stuff, but stuff. At least one character had an inciting incident at this point. And I hope we keep this trend going of things happening instead of just info dumping. Simply because it's more interesting. Like the last couple of chapters where stuff was actually happening, I was way more invested into this than when the dad explained to the mom how the world works. You know, the world in which she grew up. I do have a couple of theories. We follow these 3 characters in this world. One is the mom, her name is Orca. One is the former thrall, which are like magic slaves. That's kind of weird. His name is Varg. And the 3rd character is Elvar, and she's like a princess, as we just found out. I mean, if you look up the blurb, and you have to look it up because it's not on the book, she is immediately outed as a royal, so there's no big plot twist there. But now we have the point in the book where she is outed in front of everyone else as like a princess. She's not a princess because this is Viking inspired, so they don't have kings necessarily, except there is a queen. I'm rambling. Anyways, she has been outed as the daughter of a very powerful man who is like equal to basically royalty. And in the first 100 pages, Varg's story was the most interesting one because he was the only one with a goal. He had shit to do and he was going to do it. So he was the most interesting one because Orca was just living her best life, I guess. And Elva was just having fun hunting monsters. Now Elva is back home and again was outed as this royal person. Orca is now on a mission, and what a mission it is! Whoa! And Elvar is... he's going to get a training montage! Don't know how I feel about that. So these characters go through their stories at a very different pace to one another, and I'm very interested in seeing if they meet up by the end of it, or if they just keep doing their own shit until book 3 or something. I don't know. But the theories I'm having is, in this world, there are the Tainted Ones, and they are descendants of people who partook in the blood of the gods, or were descended from the gods. It's not quite clear, but they have powers linked to one of the gods. And there are multiple gods, and they are all like animals. Like we have a wolf god, we have a bear god, snake, dragon, blah blah blah. And they all have different skills. Like the Tainted Ones that come from the dog god, they are able to track you when they have your blood. The wolf people are incredibly powerful and loyal, and then you have the bear people, and they do things, I guess. But there's one thing that everyone more or less agrees on, and that is that the dragon goddess never existed. That she is a fairy tale. Because no one has ever seen a Tainted One coming from her. No one has ever seen a dragon-born Tainted. And I think that is going to be the point of the whole thing. Not just because she's on the cover, but because a character has alluded to there being dragonborns, and Varg is now on the way to deal with the problem that the queen has up north, and like, there is still no clear-cut overall plot, but I think the clear-cut overall plot will be that this dragon goddess is coming back, or that her Tainted people are now doing things, you know? But first and foremost, we have very character-focused things going on, with Elva dealing with her royal heritage, Orca dealing with her problem. I'm not going to spoil that because that might be the small spoiler, but just know she is the one who had the inciting incident, and she is now a woman on a mission. And Varg is just going to have his training montage. I hope he's going to pick up his own plot soon. But that is my 200-page update for Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I am incredibly bored by this book. I am now on page 307, and as you can see, I'm in the middle of it, so it's expected to be a bit more boring given the nature of Act 2. But we're just trudging along. The first 100 pages were a boring character introduction. Then we had like a glimmer of hope where shit was actually happening. And now we're back to trudging along. Orca is training fishermen on her way from point A to point B to bust a child trafficking ring. Varg is continuing his training montage, and Elvar, family drama has never been this boring. it's just her dad making her a job offer, and she's like, maybe. And then she asks the disembodied head of a giant, should I take this job? And he's like, you gotta figure that out for yourself. And she's like, I'm not taking that job. When another job comes along that literally is the better option. And now we're on our way from point A to point B. It is so boring. Nothing is happening, and I don't know why these characters are going from A to B. I mean, it does make sense for Orca to go from A to B and bust that child trafficking ring because her son was kidnapped by the child trafficking ring. That makes sense. But she's literally just walking around. Elva, yes, she now has this goal of finding basically Atlantis or something. And it has been explained why it is so important multiple times, but I don't know. It's just the promise of going to the city where the gods died to pick their bones. Yay! It'll make people rich. Cool. Such motivation. Much drama. And Varg, again, Varg is stuck in an endless training montage. And every now and then someone reminds him that, oh shit, yeah, I'm just here because I need one of the 2 magic people to do a spell because my sister died. What this spell is about, no one knows. But he's, like, the whole time, like, he's 2 or 3 times he went up to this witch and is like, can I have this spell? And they are like, no, because you're not yet part of the Bloodsworn. And he's like, okay, cool, fine, guess I continue my training montage then until I reach level 35 in this game and unlock the magic user, I guess. It is so boring. And we are still incredibly zoomed in. Orca put on her armor, and again we get the description, a step-by-step tutorial of how to put on this specific kind of armor that literally everyone is using. On top of that, we get a step-by-step analysis of how 2 fishermen do their job, catching fish. We get a play-by-play of how to clean a weapon. Porridge has been made so many times in the same kind of way, I think I can make porridge now on my own. I have never made porridge before. It is so zoomed in. It's zooming in on the most boring parts of an already boring story. If there's nothing happening very soon, I'm going to scream. I am very glad I have the audiobook for this, because without the audiobook, I would have given up a long time ago. And all the action scenes, they feel like they have been glued into the story because someone realized just how boring the story is. So they were trying to salvage the story by slapping in random action scenes. They just happen. I mean, on the one side, it's cool to see that these people in this world, they just know that these monsters are everywhere, that they can attack at any given moment. But there are also so many characters that are just clueless for the sake of having someone explain the monsters so that the audience knows these monsters. Like Orca. Orca knew what that weird monster in the river was. The fishermen! The fishermen did not know what the water monster was. I am all in for a story that has monsters and attacks by these monsters as a regular as daily occurrence, where it is just normal that these monsters exist. I'm all for that. But this is not how you execute that. It just feels very random, and most things just feel very unnecessary to tell the story. Mind you, I don't know what the story is. I know Orca is looking for her son, I know Varg is trying to unlock the mage, and Elva is trying to get rich? I don't know. It all just feels very uninspired. It feels very uninspired. I'm trudging along through Shadow of the Gods. Hooray. This is my final update for Shadow of the Gods by Gwynne. Simply because I finished it. The last 180 or so pages I read in one go, because the first 80 pages of that were just incredibly boring. So boring, in fact, that I lost track of what character is doing what. But then, the last 90 pages, we popped off. We suddenly started to see some connections, some theories were proven, things were happening, and then the last 20 pages happened, and oh boy. This is the thing with Gwynne's books, I think. The first book is always just setup. There was an interesting 50 to 100 pages, I'd say. Towards the beginning, I would actually say somewhere between page 100 and page 200, things were interesting. And then the last 90 pages again. And everything in between was incredibly boring. Because right up until the end, we keep it zoomed in, we get another, like, everyone is still putting on their armor in, like, a paragraph, and not just a sentence that says that they put on their armor. We go through it step by step all the way until the end. So a lot of this feels like extra padding to get to the almost 500 pages. A lot of it feels unnecessary too. There's a storyline in here that I don't think needed to happen the way it happened. Like, the only reason this specific storyline is in there is to pad out the story, in my opinion. But yeah, the ending... This is one of those books where the ending actually actively impacts your rating on the book. This is a book where the ending matters. I was so bored in the middle, and the ending almost makes it worth it. Almost. And I was actually thinking, like, between the pages 200 and 400, I was actually thinking, do I want to continue this series? And then the last 90 pages happened, and I'm like, shit! Yes, I want to continue the series. So that's that! But with this, I finish my read for Valhalla Calling by A Miracle of Sound. And that is one song for Read the Beats down. So I picked up Leather and Lark. And I already am halfway through. Whoops. So Leather and Lark is very unlike Butcher and Blackbird, where Butcher and Blackbird was all about murder, mayhem, and amusement. Leather and Lark is a lot more emotional. There's a lot more emotional conflict going on in our main characters. Like, Lark is all over the place, and I'm sure there's an eternal logic to what she is doing for her, and there's also, like, a logic to what she does externally, but it's like the way she comes to certain conclusions is just very much, they make sense for her, not necessarily for everyone else. And Lachlan, he's described as a brooding dickhead. I would actually say he is a very angsty guy. Like, he is very much, I don't want to do that anymore. He's like your typical, well, usually you see that in a lot of vampire stories where you have, like, the vegetarian vampire because they can't deal with the fact that they have to kill for a living. It's very much that vibe, just that he's not a vampire but a contract killer. So there are a lot of emotional complications in here. It's very much not what I was expecting. It's still good. It's just very different from Butcher and Blackbird in the way that I wasn't expecting, if that makes sense. There's also a lot less murder in here, which I solely blame on the fact that we don't have a annual serial killers hunting serial killer competition. 3 people did die, one in a very spectacular way, the other one a very creative way, and the third one was just died. Halfway through the book, certain things have fallen into place. Like, we have the wedding. That is the fake wedding, that is part of the main part of the story, and we met the parents in the last chapter, and I'm a big fan of Auntie Ethel. She's amazing. Auntie Ethel is amazing. She knows she will die, and she wants to cause as much chaos as she can on her way out, and I think that's iconic. So yeah, it says romance, murder, and chaos on the top here, and that's yes. But we're also at a point now where Lachlan and Lark will get closer on an emotional level, I'm pretty sure. It was at around this point in Butcher and Blackbird where we switched from the killing to the actual bonding as a couple. I don't think we're quite there yet with these two, that we are emotionally bonding, but we're getting there. So I'm very interested to see where this is going. There is a non-zero chance that the next update you get on Leather and Lark will be the final update, because I accidentally finished reading the book. I apologize for nothing. I did it. I finished Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver, and the trigger warnings in the beginning say that this book is going to ruin pizza for me. No! Again, this one is ruining marriage proposals. How does a book about murder and mayhem make me swoon harder than some romance novels? Tell me your secrets, Brynne! This one follows the exact same formula as Leather and Lark. There is, you can see the building blocks in this one. But this story is so fundamentally different than Butcher and Blackbird. I'm pointing in that direction because it's right there, the pink stripe. That's Butcher and Blackbird. This story is very different from Butcher and Blackbird. In Butcher and Blackbird, you follow two different serial killers who hunt serial killers, right? In this one, you follow a contracted killer, Lachlan, and a woman, Lark. She is a serial killer, but she prefers the term multiple deleter. I think that's very stupid. And we see her at work. And she is more of the deranged kind of serial killer you would see on an episode of Criminal Minds or something. Like, she's just doing it because she has this inner need and it's an impulse. There's less calculation behind what she's doing. She just sees a person and she hunts predators. So when she finds a predator, she's just going completely off the rails. Footnote though, if you put something organic in resin, you have to dry it first. Just putting a full-blown man into a giant block of resin, that corpse will still decompose. And what do humans do when they decompose? Correct, they bloat and they poof. It will crack your resin and there will be some leakage at some point. If you don't trust me, there is this pair of, I don't know what they are in relation to each other, but they have been trying to preserve a Halloween pumpkin every year for a couple of years now with different methods, and it still doesn't work for them. They are getting there, but it doesn't work for them yet, and they have perfect examples of what happens to a whole ass pumpkin when you put that in a resin block over the years. They have some leak-in pumpkins, they have some exploded resin. Pretty sure that's going to happen when you put a whole body in there. Just a footnote. So we follow the contracted killer. The contracted killer doesn't want to be a contracted killer, and he doesn't do a single contract killer job in the whole book. I don't think he's actually actively killing anyone in this book. He helps Lark kill someone, but he's never actually killing someone. And he wants out. He just wants out, and Lark does some very creative killing, and she's actually hiding it. Like, she has this other persona that is the serial killer. Doesn't matter. Their relationship, this is a forced marriage, fake marriage thing they do to get around one or two problems. The thing is, we focus very much on the relationship between these two, which I don't mind. It's so good. It's just every 40 days someone dies that is close to the family of Lark, and that is why they have to marry, because Lark's family thinks it's Lachlan, so she marries Lachlan so that Lachlan doesn't get targeted, and Lachlan's brothers, one of which is Rowan from Butcher and Blackbird, who married Sloan, and Sloan is Lark's best friend. So there's this whole thing. But the murder investigation isn't important until like the last 100 pages. It's completely irrelevant. It's so far in the background as a plot. It literally doesn't matter. Fucking brilliant. I love the relationship in this. It follows the same building blocks as Butcher and Blackbird, but it's a very different story. Long story short. I still love this, but it's not as strong as Butcher and Blackbird in my opinion. The humor is a bit missing. I don't know what it is, but the humor is a bit missing. Also, funny side note, I read this 0 to 48% and then 49% to 100%, just like I read Butcher and Blackbird. And just like in Butcher and Blackbird, we have 48%, which is just them dancing around each other, and then at the 48 to 50% mark, they start to realize, oh shit, I have a crush on this other person, and then they realize, oh shit, that person has a crush on me, and then it's just bonking, and resolution for the very background plot. That's what I mean with the same building blocks. Like, it is down to the exact percentage. That's how good these building blocks work. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like this one. Yes, can't wait for the next one to drop. I think it's coming in February 2025. Scythe and what was it, Sparrow, I think. And we follow the third Kane brother, the teddy bear, the doctor. That's who we are following in book 3, and yes, great choice. Excuse the look. I got up not too long ago, and I'm very tired because I slept like shit. But I started Dowry of Blood, and I made it the first part, like I finished the first part, which is 80 pages, and yes! So far, this is everything I hoped it would be, which would be an achingly beautiful piece of prose about a very interesting kind of relationship. Yes. If you have watched the show, the new AMC show, Interview with a Vampire, you know exactly what kind of vibes this has. At least in the first part. I can't speak for the next, I think, what is it? I'm 27% in, so the next 73%, I can't speak for those. But the first 80 pages, the first 27%, it's just so beautiful, it hurts. I'm such a sucker for prose like that. There's not a lot going on. There is literally no plot. It is just Constanta, our main character, recounting what happened. We start with her being turned into a vampire by her lord, her maker, her husband. She strips him of his name, and I feel the urge to honor her wishes and not name him, which is a very interesting thing. So we start with her being turned, and then we skip around. Like, she's explaining the rules of her new life. She's explaining who her husband is to her, how she views him. But she's also explaining, like, from the get-go that she had to learn how to dance around his moods and everything. He's not a very nice person. He is not a very nice person, and the writing breaks it down so well. It shows a person who went through this incredibly toxic relationship and is now reporting on it with hindsight, but also with empathy for her past self. Yes. Again, there is not a lot of plot because we only get this recounting from where she was turned all the way to, I don't know, I just finished the section I just finished ends in, the early 1500s. It's when Vienna gets invaded by the Ottomans. So we don't get a number of when she was turned, but she talks about being with him for decades, maybe a century at that point. So, and we skip through those, let's say it's 100 years. We skip through those pretty fast. Again, it's 80 pages for 100 years of relationship. That's quick. But the way we pick the spotlights of this relationship in these 100 years is just perfect. So no plot. There are no other characters. Constanta has been isolated from everyone for decades. We had, so far, 2 other characters, only one of which was actually talking, and then he, right away died. The second one, we only got her name, and that's it. We never see her, we never hear her talk, we never know about her character. And this isolation of those 2 characters, of just being with Constanta and occasionally her husband, it adds to the whole thing. Because that is what toxic partners do, right? They isolate you from your support system. Now, Constanta didn't have a support system to begin with. When he turned her, she didn't have a support system, so it was easy to isolate her. And then he just had to keep her isolated, which was also very easy. Long story short, I really enjoy A Dowry of Blood so far. This book. It's so good. I don't even have words for how good this book is. I've read part 2 now, and I don't even know why this book is so good. It's just, nothing is really happening. There is not a lot of plot. It is very much a person telling you the story of her life, specifically the story of her relationship with this very toxic person. And yet it is so good. The vibes are immaculate. It's just, I don't know. This is just evoking feelings. Period. This is the definition of the word gripping. If someone says a story is gripping, this is what they mean. It's just, I open it up and the pages just suck me in. There is something very visceral to this. I don't know how else to describe it. It's not because it's bloody and gory, because it's not necessarily that. It's just very honest, and it is very cutthroat in a way. I am deeply in love with this book. So in part 2, we have the second lover in this relationship. This is a polyamorous romance, for those who don't know. The first part is just Constanta and her maker, and in the second part we meet Magdalena, and she is very different from Constanta, and it shifts the whole dynamic, because now it's not just the two of them, it's the three of them, and he is shifting in this dynamic, and Constanta takes a second, but then she warms up to Magdalena, and they have their own relationship dynamic, and all three of them have a different relationship dynamic. On top of that, you have the dynamic of the world around them. It's just so good. And in part 3, we will meet the third one of the bunch. His name is Alexei, I believe. Yes, Alexei. I always tend to call him Alexei. And I am very much looking forward to how he is going to shift the relationships again. And we are also now, timeline-wise, I think at the precipice of the First World War? Question mark? Not quite sure. They are in Berlin. Well, they just left Berlin and they are going to Russia now. But I don't have an exact timestamp on that. But yeah, I am. This is such a good book. This is such a good book. I'm pretty sure halfway into this. I mean, I was sure at like after a couple of chapters. This is actually like, this was a 5-star prediction from the get-go. Then I started reading it and I was like, yes, this has to be a 5-star. And now I'm halfway in and I'm like, yes, this is. I am 99.9% sure that this is going to be a 5-star. It's just, it does something to me and I cannot name it. I have to say, the picks for Read the Beats were really good. I finished the third and final pick for Read the Beats, A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and in part 3 we meet Alexei, and Alexei is bringing a whole different vibe to this whole thing, and it's a completely different flavor of good. And the ending, yes. I am so torn about the ending though, because I am a high fantasy reader, so when I am faced with an adversary like this, the ending was almost boring, which is a good thing, because a person like this doesn't deserve the epic final battle and stuff. He didn't deserve that. So it's good that he just had this rather unspectacular end, so we can all forget about it. But at the same time, I'm used to high fantasy epic battles against the big baddies, so I was like, it is the perfect ending for this story. Let's put it at that. Still gave it 5 stars because yes. I also like the fact that the last, like, not necessarily chapter, but like the last part is from Alexei's perspective, who is the youngest by a long shot. So we get a bit from his perspective after the fact, and him kind of finding his place in this new / old family dynamic they have going on. Yes. Good choice. Very good choice. I love this one. I loved it so much. And this is the end of this vlog. We made it. I made it. Took me forever to get through these 3 books, but I'm not mad about reading them. I had so much fun with Leather and Lark, and I had so much emotion, period, with A Dowry of Blood, and I guess I read Shadow of the Gods. I'm not regretting reading this, but this is definitely the lowest rating of them all, and these are literally head-to-head. I cannot tell you which one is better because they do very different things and they do them very well. I like all 3 of these. So to recap, I read In the Shadow of Gods by Gwynne for Valhalla Calling by Miracle of Sound. I read Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver for Shady by Adam Lambert, and I read A Dowry of Blood for a Linkin Park In the End piano cover version. And that is the whole concept of Read the Beats. If you want to watch more Read the Beats, head over to Jess from ThisKiwi, who provided me with my songs, and I provided her with some songs that I dished out. And yeah, I guess I see you in the next video. Bye!